Would it not be safer and more certain if I should ask him his name and tell him yours?" demanded the host. "There is no harm in over precaution. I am the Viscount de Bragelonne, and he is called Gremid." At this moment the wounded man arrived from one direction, and the monk from the other, the latter dismounting from his mule, and desiring that it should be taken to the stables without being unharnessed. "Sir Monk," said De Guiche, "confess well that brave man, and be not concerned for your expenses or for those of your mule, all is paid." "Thanks, monsieur," said the monk, with one of those smiles that made Bragelonne shudder. "Come, count," said Raoul, who seemed instinctively to dislike the vicinity of the Augustine, "come, I feel ill here," and the two young men spurred on. The litter, borne by two servants, now entered the house. The host and his wife were standing on the steps, whilst the unhappy man seemed to suffer dreadful pain, and yet to be concerned only to know if he was followed by the monk. At sight of this pale, bleeding man, the wife grasped her husband's arm. "Well, what's the matter?" asked the latter. "Are you going to be ill just now?" "No, but look," replied the hostess, pointing to the wounded man. "I ask you if you recognize him." That man waited a bit. "Ah, I see you know him," exclaimed the wife. "Truly," cried the host, "misfortune is coming on our house. It is the former executioner of Bethune." "The former executioner of Bethune," murmured the young monk, shrinking back, and showing on his countenance the feeling of repugnance which his penitent inspired. Monsieur Dorminges, who was at the door, perceived his hesitation. "Sir Monk," said he, "whether he is now or has been an executioner, this unfortunate being is none the less a man. Render to him, then, the last service he can by any possibility ask of you, and your work will be all the more meritorious." The monk made no reply, but silently wended his way to the room where the two valets had deposited the dying man on a bed. Dorminges and Olivain and the two grooms then mounted their horses, and all four started off at a quick trot to rejoin Raoul and his companion. Just as the tutor and his escort disappeared in their turn, a new traveller stopped on the threshold of the inn. "What does your worship want?" demanded the host, pale and trembling from the discovery he had just made. The traveller made a sign as if he wished to drink, and then pointed to his horse and gesticulated like a man who is brushing something. "Ah, diable," said the host to himself. "There," answered the traveller, pointing to the table. "I was mistaken," said the host. "He's not quite dumb. And what else does your worship wish for?" "To know if you have seen a young man pass, 15 years of age, mounted on a chestnut horse and followed by a groom?" "The Viscount de Bragelonne." "Just so. Then you are called Monsieur Gremid." The traveller made a sign of assent. "Well, then," said the host, "your young master was here a quarter of an hour ago. He will dine at Mazingarbe and sleep at Cambrin." "How far is Mazingarbe?" 2 miles and a half. "Thank you." Gremid was drinking his wine silently, and had just placed his glass on the table to be filled a second time, when a terrific scream resounded from the room occupied by the monk and the dying man. Gremid sprang up. "What is that?" said he. "Whence comes that cry?" "From the wounded man's room," replied the host. "What wounded man?" "The former executioner of Bethune, who has just been brought in here, assassinated by Spaniards, and who is now being confessed by an Augustine friar, the old executioner of Bethune," muttered Gremid, a man between 55 and 60. "Tall, strong, swarthy, black hair and beard. That is he, except that his beard has turned grey and his hair is white. Do you know him?" asked the host. "I have seen him once," replied Gremid, a cloud darkening his countenance at the picture so suddenly summoned to the bar of recollection. At this instant a second cry, less piercing than the first, but followed by prolonged groaning, was heard. The three listeners looked at one another in alarm. "We must see what it is," said Greenmid. "It sounds like the cry of one who is being murdered," murmured the host.